There are a hell of a lot of people out there who feel left behind or betrayed by the political system, by Democrats and by Republicans. And yes, these are, the people that voted Democratic. These are the Democrats that voted for Reagan in 1980. These are people who look at the vast creation of wealth and look at their own lives and see that it's entirely passed them by.
I feel like if Huey Long had a baby with Charles Lindbergh and the baby was born and adopted by Roy Cohn, that would be Donald Trump. Okay, so you have this manifestation of isolationist tendencies, manifestation of white supremacy. He is a descendant of the first America First movement.
Yep.
And then he has that sort of evilness that Roy had, which we all remember living here in New York, how treacherous Roy Cohn was. I guess my question, and this is an observation, did he make the Republican Party and remold it in his image, or was the clay already out there and they drew to him once he started spitting his invective?
There are a lot of people that have made the argument that the clay was out there. Dana Milbank wrote a whole book about this, looking at the Republican Party laying the groundwork for Trumpism and spending a lot of time in the Gingrich era, et cetera, et cetera. And, there are some arguments there. I just think it's different. I think that, Donald Trump is not in any way a conventional conservative Republican, or what they used to call the movement conservatives. He is all about himself. When he's talking about retribution and he's talking about making a war on the deep state, he's talking about making war on people that he views as his enemies, his personal enemies. As you know, in the book, I spend a lot of time talking about the imagery of Waco, Texas as the location of the first campaign rally, and the language, much of it, I think, Bannon inspired, of talking about, rooting out and utterly destroying the people within our government that are our enemies, our domestic enemies, the people that are out to get us, the ordinary citizens. This is all the language of the militia movement that we saw in the 1990s that inspired Timothy McVeigh to load up a U-Haul truck full of fertilizer and to bomb the federal building in Oklahoma City. And he did that largely because of the federal overreach that we saw result in 80 plus people dying in Waco, Texas. And here Donald Trump is echoing the same language, except now the complaint isn't, that the federal authorities vastly screwed up in, when they went after the Branch Davidians, which they did. It's that the federal authorities are coming after classified documents that I pilfered from the White House, that I'm being prosecuted for paying off a porn star. I mean, it's all him. These are not real grievances.
But it makes you wonder, though, right, John? I mean, you've been doing this again a long time. You've traveled the country covering campaigns. You interview people from many different states, lots of swing states. What happened to the country? My observation was that, and again, doesn't reflect well on me because I blew up in a blue collar neighborhood, but I feel that I was in an aspirational blue collar neighborhood. My parents thought their kids were going to go to college and live the American dream. When I traveled with Mr. Trump before he was president, so we'll call him Mr. Trump to date it, 71 campaign stops with the Trump plane in and out of places, Rust Belt states, swing states. These people felt economically desperational. They felt like the establishment had left them out.
Oh, yeah.
And so now, a result of which he's their last best hope. I guess why can't the establishment see that? Why isn't these are people, John, that voted for Lyndon Johnson, or their grandparents or great-grandparents voted for FDR. Why is it that neither party, whether it's my old party, the Republican Party, before this reconfiguration, or the Democrats, are not getting what Trump is laying down, which is so obvious now after 7 years of observing it?
Yeah, and when I say the grievances aren't real, I'm talking about the deep state being out to get you, and they're trying to
I know that.
I'm talking about that stuff, but in terms of there are a hell of a lot of people out there who feel left behind or betrayed by the political system, by Democrats and by Republicans. And yes, these are, the people that voted Democratic. These are the Democrats that voted for Reagan in 1980. These are, people who look at the vast creation of wealth and look at their own lives and see that it's entirely passed them by. And they also see themselves talked down to by elites. They see, and a lot of it plays into the culture stuff, of course, poor or middle class whites who get blamed for all order of things and told that they are privileged because of their race. And so it was very fertile ground for Trump to tap into. And when you were on the plane with him going around in 2016, I mean, I think that a big part of the appeal there was the image that Trump had successfully created for himself, by the way, before he got into politics, long before he got into politics, which I'm the guy. I mean, I'm like the biggest, the richest, the best. I've developed the best thing, the greatest, and I'm going to do it for you now. I'm going to do it for the country. I'm going to bring in the greatest minds. I'm going to bring in the Anthony Scaramucci's. I'm going to bring in the ruthless negotiators from Wall Street, and I'm going to have them negotiate for our country. I mean, it was, there was never much to it in reality, but the appeal to it was obvious. And then, when Republicans finally got around to kind of criticizing him and taking him on in that primary, for too long, they tried to ignore him because they thought he would disappear. One of the first attacks from Marco was, he's a fraud as a business guy. He's not really successful. And, Republican voters looking, wait, you mean the guy that's like giving helicopter rides at the Iowa State Fair? You mean the guy that just arrived on his own jet that says Trump on it? And Marco, who's like, struggling to pay off your college debt, you're saying this guy's not successful?
Right.
It didn't land. And right. He, that was the appeal. But that's a very different message than what he's saying now.